thank you all for attending this January 2021 IGEL Community Meetup. We're really excited about this. I think we're the first people at IGEL to publicly, and maybe Simon, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but to sort of publicly talk about this IGEL OS RPI4, our Raspberry Pi solution for our IGEL OS running on ARM. So really excited about this, really looking forward to sharing all this stuff with you guys. So the agenda today, we have an hour and a half. The agenda today is first we're going to talk. Some folks from IGEL are going to come on and talk a bit about this announcement. What is IGEL OS RPI4? Am I even saying that correct? Is it RPI4? Why NComputing? Why did we partner with NComputing? What do they bring to the table? They're going to come on. We have the NComputing guys with us. They're going to share a bit about their solution. And then we're going to open this thing up, as always, for Q&A. And Sebastian and I will be the hosts and ask these guys questions, and please use the questions piece to ask that. So upcoming events, it is a new year. We have a bunch of events coming. I must confess, we don't have one scheduled for February yet, but that will be coming very soon. So stay tuned. In March, we have our meetup already scheduled, and we're going to have a Disrupt recap. So if you've not registered for IGEL Disrupt, please do. So unfortunately, it's not in person. Boy, does that a big bummer, but we'll be doing these things virtually, and we have a great lineup for that. So definitely attend that, and then we'll do Q&A with Matthias, our CTO, after the fact. Of course, if you're joining this meetup and you're not already an IGEL community member, maybe you just wanted to hear the top secret news, please join the IGEL community. We do a bunch of things like this. We also do so much. We have 5,500 members now. We're just about to turn 200,000 messages posted in the community between all these folks. It's a really great place to be. You can learn a lot about IGEL, about our partners, and of course keep up to date with all this great stuff like this Raspberry Pi IGEL OS on ARM solution. Here's our website, and of course for future events, go to the website /events, and you can find all the community events we do. We try to keep them technical, we try to keep them light, and have a little bit more fun than the typical webinar. At least that's my goal. Let's see if we achieve that. So we put this slide in because every time we do something like this, someone uses the chat to ask a question. We don't see that. So please use the Q&A piece of GoToWebinar. You'll see it at the bottom of the screen down there. Please use that piece in order to ask us questions. And when we get to the Q&A piece, Sebastian and I will field those questions and ask them to our great panel we have assembled today. So Sebastian, I thought you wanted to mention some great stuff about some of the things that our IGEL insiders have brought to the table. And Simon, I think you wanted to also mention some shout outs too before we get started.
Exactly. I would just make the start then. Yeah, a big thank you to all the IGEL insiders who went through the process of testing the RPI4 platform with IGEL OS. So we had a couple of people who went through a process to get demo units and this kind of stuff. So just in case, all that insider stuff is really important to us. So as soon as you push a lot of messages, a lot of content to our community, you can get a kind of insider. And that insider brings a lot of added advantages. Besides the fact that you can get access to private builds and so on, it also brings the advantage to participate to that kind of beta program, even if you are not using it as a customer usually. So that's just a big thank you from my side for being such active and helping us on developing that product. It really helped us a lot. We have a couple of customers too. That's where I would hand it over to Simon, who had a few customers from Germany and from the rest of the world who needed to be mentioned, I guess.
No, not just Germany, from Austria as well. And a special shout out to Thomas Mattausch and to Daniel Kraus. Thomas from BEV and Daniel from ZF. We used their quotes for the press release and for the blog that went out yesterday. Really appreciate the support from the community. It's been a fantastic set of input and really helped us out in this process. So cannot say thank you enough to all the members of the community, and hopefully, as Doug says, this is a benefit for you all to be able to get early access to our technology. I want to point out that we're not done yet. The actual general availability isn't until February, so we're now in what we call beta 2 phase of this release, and looking forward to still more feedback and more input from all of you people, and keep up the good work. Back to you, Doug.
You got it. Well, I'm just happy to be able to talk about it. You know, that's one of the things. I've worked for software companies for a long time and had a lot of NDAs, and they tell you these great things. You're just chomping at the bit to tell people about it. And now to be able to you know, answer the question, and we get it all the time. Does IGEL have a solution for the Raspberry Pi? And now we can say, yes, we do. Give us just a few more weeks and we'll have it to you, right? So really neat. So with no further ado, we're going to bring Yuta on, and she's going to talk a bit about what we've announced and some of the specifics of this thing. So are you there?
I'm there. Thank you, Doug. Okay, during the next minutes, I will give you a quick overview of the new IGEL OS firmware supporting an dedicated NComputing ARM device. So next slide, please. Okay. As you can see here, the opportunities within the ARM technologies are limited. At the moment, just Citrix offers supported environments, but more will follow. Microsoft is working on a solution for WWD, and I'm sure VMware will also deliver on a Horizon client for ARM. But our approach providing, yes, thank you. But our providing anywhere access also works here. So with the cost-effective NComputing device running IGEL OS RPI4, users can work from office, from home, or anywhere else. Okay, next slide, please. And the IGEL story gets better and better and more relevant. It's simple and strong and very nice to talk about. We save customers money. We make customers more productive, and a high importance today, we make their endpoints really more secure. Next slide, please. What was the reason for IGEL to enter the ARM market? So if you have a look on this overview, you can see the upcoming shipments for IoT devices compared to thin clients, fat clients, or notebooks. This is wow. So why not transform our experience and advantages of our product into this world? Next slide, please. This overview gives you a good idea how the ARM devices will develop during the next years. So note in the middle, the data center and cloud column. That will be the development of our market. Next slide, please. Okay, let's talk about the firmware of the new NComputing device. So the name is IGEL OS RPI4. It will be delivered pre-installed with every device. It comes with a 30 days starter license and 90 days with registration. Next slide, please. Our new IGEL OS for ARM architecture supports the new NComputing RX420, powered by Raspberry Pi. The firmware is optimized for Citrix HDX and supports the Citrix Workspace app and Workspace Hub. The performance is similar to a PC because of an H.264 hardware rendering support, and IGEL OS RPI4, this is complicated to say, also supports the Chromium browser. The management of the devices with our universal management suite is mandatory. Next slide, please. What is supported? IGEL supports dual monitor in a lot of USB devices like mouse, keyboards, whatever. You can see, you can find a complete list on our knowledge base during the next days. Okay, next slide, please. Here you can see the management of the NComputing device. It is similar to our IGEL-powered x86 devices. The Universal Management Suite controls devices inside and outside the company network with the help of our Cloud Gateway functionality. Okay. I think the benefits. Oh, I think that we skipped one slide. Can you go back, please? Okay, no. Thank you, sorry. Go ahead. Most vertical.
No.
No. What?
No. Yeah, we didn't skip one.
Okay, so that was my fault. Okay. Yes, most of verticals are very cost sensitive. So for the IGEL OS RPI4 and the NComputing RX420 IGEL, we see healthcare, finance, higher education, manufacturing, and retail at the moment as our core verticals. Next slide, please. So what's differences? UD2, respectively UD3 or NComputing RX420. So every device has its own advantages depending on customer needs. IGEL UDs supports multiple protocols with access on any cloud. It delivers a secure boot process and delivers more than 100 integrated partner solutions that fits most of our customer needs. The RX420 IGEL is perfect for cost-sensitive customers who just want to access Citrix-only environments and are looking for IoT-type environments with browser-based access only. Next slide. What kind of devices are supported by IGEL OS RPI4? It's just the NComputing RX420 IGEL at the moment. No other IoT device is supported. Next slide, please. But can the new IGEL OS run on other devices? Yes, theoretically, but it is not supported. So go ahead with the dedicated NComputing device and you're safe. Next slide, please. Here we have some useful links. There are special product pages on the NComputing website and the IGEL website. The NComputing website has a store. You can get a discounted evaluation unit. Okay, next slide, please. So some final information regarding the licenses of the software. So the included 30 days, respectively 90 days starter license includes all IGEL software for testing. After this period, every device needs a license for the IGEL Universal, for the IGEL Workspace Edition, or based of needed functionality for the Enterprise Management Pack. But we offer a license mobility, so the IGEL OS license can be transferred from one device to the other. And you can also mix it with an x86 device. As Simon mentioned before, the general availability will be February 25th.
Which is the day of Disrupt.
What a coincidence.
Yeah, imagine that, right?
And I have some final words regarding sales and support. The hardware devices can be bought through the NComputing sales channel. It's the same for the software. It can be bought via our channel. This also applies to support. Hardware support is given by NComputing, and the software support will be given by us. Here you have an overview about our channels. I think the slide deck will be shared at the end, so you have it if you need it at the end. So that's from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. Sweet. Yeah, and there's the EMEA ones also. Again, we'll share this again. Simon, do you want to talk for a little bit, and maybe I can stop sharing this and show that video? Is that what you want?
I think exactly. So here's a one of the technical slide. Poor old Jeff, he lost his moment of fame as he.
Well, we're going to bring up the video for him.
Off the screen there. All right, we'll bring up the video, and it's got Jeff on it.
I'll survive.
One of the biggest single questions that we get about this technology is support for unified communications. Clearly, that is the #1 driving feature for most work from home, work from anywhere initiatives at the moment that we're caught in the middle of with this COVID-19 thing. So I am delighted to say that with a bunch of testing and evaluation, we've been able to prove some pretty significant and some pretty impressive results working with teams. Thanks to Jeff Kalberg and to Frederick Bratstig. We'll show you some of the things they've been able to do. You could start the video if you like. Make sure that you have to turn the audio on to get that. But I just want to show you the first 30 seconds or so of this, that it really is live. That there is a gotcha here. The interesting thing about this is that IGEL, as everybody knows on this call or should know on this call, is a 64-bit operating system. We're paranoid and convinced that 64-bit is the way to go. The NComputing device, the RPI4, is a 64-bit device. That's one of the reasons why we held off on doing anything with the Raspberry Pi 3. Citrix is coming along or supposedly thinking about it, and we all need to put a bit of pressure on Citrix on this. But currently, the Citrix Workspace app, the Citrix Workspace Hub are all 32-bit. So to get this to work, we are actually using Teams in a 32-bit mode to make this work. But the truth of the matter is you can get good performance out of this. You can achieve what you want. Jeff's about to jump in and correct me and sort me out here. But we have a conflict between the 32-bit and the 64-bit. Yeah. So be very careful with your configurations and how you're using the tools here, because it's that most of the Citrix stuff is 32-bit. Jeff, what have I said wrong?
Well, yeah, that was an interesting thing is there is no Teams optimization in the Workspace app for ARM today. So what we did in order to make this work is we're using the webcam optimization, which unfortunately webcam optimizations only work if you're running a 32-bit application in the remoted environment. So for example, if you run Chrome or Edge and 64-bit in the remoted environment, you will not get any camera. So and Citrix, way down in all the documentation at the very, there's a single line in there where they basically say Workspace app for Linux does not support anything but 32-bit applications in the remoted environment for webcam optimization. So what we did is we built up a Citrix environment and obviously installed the 32-bit version of Teams, 32-bit version of Edge and Chrome. Zoom, as it is today, is also 32-bit, but Zoom looks for hardware through the Citrix environment, so Zoom camera doesn't work here, but Teams does. And we have this 10-minute video. We go through everything. We go through the webcam. We talk about the 32-bit limitation. We do screen sharing. We play videos remotely across this. Keeping in mind as you look at it all, the servers in Sweden, I'm in Cincinnati, and I'm sharing my screen, and it's pretty amazing. So
performance is incredible. I love it. So Doug, start the video if you can. There you go. Okay, this is showing much. This is Zoom is killing us now. It's smoother actually when you see the actual YouTube video, but and we don't have any sound. So clearly, what we'll do is we'll share with you the YouTube connection and let everybody have a look at it. But just wanted to let everybody know there is a solution here for Teams. It's not exactly all the pieces that you want, but it will work for unified communications. And now over to our friends at NComputing. By the way, it's really important to stress this. This was a really significant decision for us to partner closely with NComputing. There's numerous questions coming up in the channel, Pat, saying, well, can I run it on this? Can I run it on that? Maybe is the answer to that. But we have worked hard to tune this for the NComputing device. This is our preferred partner. We are basically going exclusive with NComputing to make sure that we iron out all the issues and make it work well for you. And it's an enterprise solution. That's why we chose NComputing, because it has an enterprise quality Raspberry Pi implementation. I can't stress enough that this is an important part of our strategy. IGEL does not want to be the home users. We are not interested in hobbyists. We're trying to enable enterprise computing solutions with this. By all means, play with it on other Raspberry. We can't stop you jailbreaking it and making it work on other RPI devices. But if you want an enterprise solution fully supported, you have to work with NComputing. I'll get off my soapbox now. Back to you, NComputing team. But it's, as I say, we love working with these guys. They're a great team.
You got it. And if you're going to call support and you throw this on a third-party Pi, and then they catch you, they're not going to help you. So that's right. Even almost one of the most important pieces, right? So Joachim, I think it's you're going to be the presenter here. So
all right,
it's all yours, buddy.
Okay, so Joachim Polster here in Germany, responsible for the European market. So let's quickly talk about what is different about NComputing. Why did we do what we do? So perhaps, can you flip the foil? So just one foil about NComputing. NComputing was founded 2004-ish, originally actually between a German person that brought the technology and a Korean person that brought the financial and logistics knowledge. Long story short, we started being a company that primarily focused on the education market. It wasn't called desktop virtualization at the time, but essentially sharing the power of a PC among multiple users. Did the software for it, did the hardware for it, and actually ran on our own proprietary hardware and proprietary software for a long time and grew up with that, becoming about number 4 in the thin client market worldwide. So today we have about 100 employees and about 5.5 million seats deployed worldwide, of, to a large extent, our own older technology, but over the last few years also some new technology, as you will see in a second. Headquartered between Korea and the US, so our management is sitting in California, close to the San Francisco airport. All our logistics and financial control and etc. is coming out of Korea. We also build the product in Korea, by the way. And then we have sales offices as usual in the different regions. We have a sales office in Germany, a very small office. There's not that much left in the UK anymore. We have a larger software group in Poland, and then sales offices in Singapore, India, etc., also through a joint venture there. So pretty sizable company with good market penetration in almost all countries. So we can really, through partners, serve enterprise customers that are situated in many countries across the world. Can we flip over? So what makes NComputing different? So perhaps go through the builds quickly, otherwise it's annoying this way. So if you look at thin clients today, and most of you probably know this, almost all thin clients are essentially PCs in disguise. Yeah, so they are built on an x86 architecture, and there's a good reason that that happened in the past. And that's very simple. When you write software for something, you want the software to be running on many, many platforms. And the only standard that used to be out there was simply the PC. So what did people do in order to make thin clients out of PCs is they took very tiny motherboards, micro ATX or something like that, put them into a small case and sold them with the appropriate software as a thin client. That works very well, but it has obviously a couple of disadvantages. First of all, it carries the same cost structure and energy consumption as a PC. So there was really very little differentiation in terms of hardware between a PC and a thin client. And in some cases, it got even worse. Not in IGEL's case, fortunately, but in some cases, people actually ran Windows operating systems, like Windows 7 embedded on these devices, which we always found a little bit weird, because one of the reasons you go into a virtualized environment is to have the OS centralized, your data centralized, and only have to do the maintenance in one space and not on all the clients again. But it happened. It's actually getting less and less people doing it. Now with NComputing, we have actually for at least the last 10 years experience with ARM. All our platforms that we did in a proprietary form were already based on ARM. We did our own silicon actually for some time, our own motherboards, obviously, our own software as well. So there's a lot of experience here in ARM, but at about 2017, we came to a point where our own architecture at the time was running out of speed, out of power, and we were thinking about which way to go. And there were two possibilities for us, obviously, either going x86 like everyone else, or sticking with ARM, but trying to find a platform that is a standard. And fortunately, at the time, there was already one, which was the Raspberry Pi. And as some of you might know, Raspberry Pi is being used very, very widely today. It comes out of the education world again. It's a spin-off of the Cambridge University, and has gone through several iterations by now, being very powerful. I saw the question on the chat before. The thing really today was, I think, quite a bit of inputs from us as well to the foundation that developed the platform. It does 4K videos on 2 screens with 30 frames per second at least. It is compatible, especially with the IGEL software, with most standard peripherals. But there are some limitations, like there always are, right? If there are no drivers available for a certain device on ARM, on a Raspberry, we are out of luck. However, what we have experienced in the last couple of years, where we already have these clients on the market, if the opportunity is large enough, pretty much every peripheral vendor is willing to pretty quickly port the software or the driver typically to the ARM technology. So it's a little bit a hurdle sometimes, but it's not unsurmountable. The platform continues to be developed nicely. It certainly has a much better price-performance ratio than x86 can have, and a considerably lower energy consumption. So now with being powered by IGEL OS, we can also bring it into the enterprise market. While so far we have mostly served the small, medium business market with these kind of devices. And it was a software limitation really until now. So that's what makes us different. We are the only, I think the only relevant at least, vendor for thin clients in the market that has experience with ARM and continues to really push the Raspberry Pi as its main platform. That's all we do, almost all we do right now. So next slide, please. So what are the unique selling points for the RX420 with the IGEL operating system? So it's the first ARM thin client powered by IGEL. You have heard that before. Well, you all know more than I do about it, but we believe it's the best-in-class management software out there. It certainly is the best price performance of any IGEL-based client right now out there. As already mentioned, originally it is Citrix that is supported, as well as a very nice Chromium browser, actually. But it does have the Citrix Workspace Hub right from the beginning, at least at the GA in February. I don't think the beta that is on the right now available has all the Workspace Hub functionality yet, but in February it's going to have that. It will be expanding to other protocols in the future. Please ask IGEL about the timeframes on that. The device is definitely capable from a hardware perspective to run all the other protocols that are out there as well. Very small form factor, commercially designed. I saw a question on the question and answer session or chat before about does it have a Visa bracket? Yes, the Visa bracket is included. So no extra 20 bucks or whatever for a Visa bracket needed. It has, and that's important compared to if you would run it on an unsupported, just off-the-shelf Pi. It has all the relevant certifications you need to be in a professional environment, starting from CE to FCC to all kinds of other things, right? So that's an important differentiation. And yes, there is different hardware in the device as well. It's not a standard off-the-shelf Pi only, but it has, for example, something which is trivial but important. It has a power button and a standby button, which is software controlled and software supported. It has a thermal management, so there's a very tiny fan in it that only kicks in very high workload environments like browser contents redirection or so. But it is there and it needs to be controlled somehow. So the software needs to do that. Again, a standard off-the-shelf Pi doesn't have all these and cannot be controlled by the IGEL software this way. So next foil, please. So the technical specification, just run through the build. As I mentioned already, dual display, 4K output, micro HDMI, so you need a cable micro to standard HDMI or DVI, whatever you use. 2 gig RAM, sometimes people say, why do you only have 2 gig RAM and not 4? Well, it's a very simple thing. 2 gig is enough, plenty actually. And 4 gig is more expensive, and we tried to hit certain price points. To USB 3.0 to USB 2.0, that should be enough again for most applications. It has dual band Wi-Fi included. That is actually important. More and more of our customers are actually using Wi-Fi. So it has a 2.4 and 5 gigabit gigahertz network, as well as gigabit Ethernet. I mentioned the power and sleep button. Thermal cooling, 10 watt is maximum power supply. Typically it runs more like 5, 6, 7 watt. Kensington security lock is included, and the micro SD card is sealed inside the package, so people cannot just play around with it and put something else in or somehow screw it up. Very ultra compact design. You can see, well, you can't see, but it's about that size, right? Very tiny, like a pack of cigarettes. And FCC, CE commercially certified, etc. So it's a professional product. I think that's what it boils down to. Please, next foil. So as IGEL partner, how can you collaborate with NComputing? So first of all, important for you to know is certainly NComputing is a company like IGEL, I think, that only sells through our channel partners. So we do not sell directly to any end customers. That is not our business, our way of doing business. We don't do that if large deals come along. They still continue to go through the proper channels, as it would be unfair to take it away from the channel once they have built the customer and have built up the business. A list of our distributors is on our website by country, so you can see where to buy it from. We are, as I said, pretty much represented everywhere through distribution. In Europe, we have quite a few distributors simply because there are so many countries and typically people like to buy locally. We also have a couple of distributors now where we overlap with IGEL, and we try to extend that. And there are really two ways of identifying opportunities. Either the IGEL partner identifies the opportunity. In that case, please ask us for help. You have our contact information. It is in this presentation. And we have our own hardware pre-sales engineers that can help you make the design in jointly with the IGEL pre-sales people. We have a design protection program where you can register an opportunity. Again, in the presentation, there's a link to this form. We share that obviously with IGEL as well once you sign up there. NComputing will work with registered IGEL partners only. NComputing identifies opportunity. That can happen as well. We have some partners, obviously. If the end customer does not have a preferred IGEL partner yet, we will inform the regional partner that is closest to him and see if they want to jump in. If that's okay, we haven't really discussed that, but I think that's the best way of doing it. And again, they can register at the link. Hardware support, RMAs, etc., are all done by NComputing, and software support is fully done by IGEL the usual way. Next slide, please. So to summarize, we certainly are the worldwide #1 vendor of ARM-based thin clients by far. There's nobody even close. We differentiate from almost all other thin client vendors by emphasizing ARM. That is what we do. Yeah, we do have an x86 device as well, but it's not our focus. NComputing enterprise thin client solution focused on Citrix for now, with a new strategic alliance with IGEL to really cover essentially the entire market that is out there for Citrix now with our solutions. And I think that's what I have. Yeah, okay, and here are the contacts, but I think they were in the previous presentation as well.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's have one more slide. And in case you guys forgot, please, we're going to get into Q&A now. And so please, if you have any questions, use the Q&A piece. If you put them in chat, we can't guarantee we'll see them. So let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And let's let me get my stuff in order on my side. We will get you this. We will record or post a recorded version here in either tonight or tomorrow. Probably tomorrow. Takes a while to render these darn things, and then we'll post a PowerPoint. And of course, with inside the IGEL community, if you have any questions for us, we can definitely help you, and we can help you get in touch with the right folks too. You know, the other thing I'd like to say is I actually have one of those Pis. It's really an awesome device. You know, when I was first given a Pi years ago, when Citrix first did it, it was a little plastic piece of junk, I must confess. And when I received this one, I haven't played with one of the newer ones, and it's really nice piece of hardware. I was quite impressed by it, and I think you guys will like it also. So that being said, as always, Sebastian and I are going to take a little bit of turns asking these guys some questions. So
maybe take over some from the question and answer section, because one question is pretty hot at the moment.
Perfect. Go for it, bud.
Will the next revision of the LX 420 include power over Ethernet? Power over Ethernet was asked, I would guess, maybe 4 or 5 times during the session.
Yeah.
So let me ask this question first.
Yeah, please. That's a goodie.
Who wants to answer?
Sure.
Richard?
Sure, I can answer. By the way, I'm CTO of NComputing, so pleased to be here today. We look at PoE on the RX 420 device. I think one of the trade-off is form factor versus functionality. So the current design is really to deliver an ultra compact form factor that can be fit anywhere. You know, it can be shipped to the customer through a regular mail envelope. It can be VESA mount behind the monitor. Basically, you have a clean desk. With PoE, that's something we're considering, but it will have to be a brand new design because there's a header, PoE header, that's sitting on the Raspberry Pi 4. So that will add cost. That will also add form factor complexity. But this is something that we're always considering, is the next generation hardware based on the use cases. Now, the other thing I want to point out is one of the reasons we pick a Raspberry Pi platform, it's low power capability. So in the standby power, I think less than 5 watts. If you fully connected, you know, all the USB ports connect to the monitor, maximum 10 watts. So we have seen customers basically leave the device on. They simply, in this case, log off the Citrix session. Once they're in front of the device again, they just relog in. So we have seen customers that actually never log off the device because this is essentially an IoT device, or the device can be rebooted remotely to restart, you know, certain programs. So for us, based on the ultra low power consumption, based on the design goal that we're trying to reach, which is the ultra form factor for portabilities and being able to deploy in manufacturing in different vertical markets, we haven't seen a clear need to have a PoE. But things may change. You know, people will have different use cases. But that is certainly something that we are looking into in the future.
Perhaps I can also add one other possibility here. We have seen that request before. We actually have a couple of customers that use PoE. And there is a very simple way right now as well. There are very inexpensive and small splitters between Ethernet and power and Ethernet again, obviously. They cost, I don't know, somewhere between $6 and $8 on Amazon. I mean, it's really next to nothing. They are tiny and they do the job. Yeah, so I understand it's a tiny little extra thing, but it might be better than using a power supply, right? And another alternative, which we have also seen people talking about, is if you have a monitor that has a USB output that has a decent power budget, that's another possibility to just power the device off the monitor. Yeah, if you don't need the USB port for anything else, just power the Pi with it. But you need to make sure it has the right power budget there. But those two possibilities are at least something that people do right now if they want either PoE or not another power supply. Yeah, and the rest Richard already pointed out for the future.
Perfect, thank you.
Perfect, and that's a great question. There was something a lot of our insiders, IGEL insiders, who tested it, asked these questions too, or asked that question. One of the other questions we hear quite often, or I've heard quite often from the insiders until they tested it, of course, is monitor support. So can we support multiple monitors? Can we support 4K monitors? I think you talked a little bit about that, but maybe there's a little bit more you could say.
Sure. So as we said, 2 monitors, obviously, and that's a maximum, by the way. And you have up to 4K resolution on both monitors. If you have one monitor with 4K, you can have up to 60 Hertz. If you have 2 monitors with 4K, it goes up to 30 Hertz. That's a bit of a limitation. But you could have 2 monitors with full HD, for example, then you can be at 60 Hertz again. So we think that most reasonable monitors today are being supported quite nicely with the device, and it automatically recognizes the monitors.
Perfect.
Then I would take over one question coming from one of our customers. What about the storage? Do you have some generic micro SD or something with more write and cycle lifetime? I mean, this question happened 2 or 3 times in the chat and also before, so there will be a question regarding the lifetime of the micro SD card itself.
Richard, you want to do this?
Yeah, I think in general, thin client operating system doesn't really write frequently to the micro SD card. You know, the micro SD card is really intended to save, you know, device configuration settings, which is a very small capacity. Maybe the personnel from IGEL can comment. For example, Chromium browsers. When you search, you know, the website, you know, it has a lot of web caching. All those web caching should be sitting on top of the RAM, meaning if you reboot the device, everything is wiped out like a kiosk mode, so it doesn't really wear and tear on the micro SD card. So based on our experience, the micro SD card is actually very reliable. You know, it is not being used like a PC. You write and save files into the device constantly. Is really you know, mostly read-only operation. From time to time, you will have you know, saving into the micro SD card based on the device configuration settings.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Perfect. And this is along the lines of my last question about monitors. Came from one of our testers, actually. Similar to Citrix version of the Pi, can you connect to Pi 0 via USB for additional monitor support, allowing 3 monitors?
Well, it's a good question. So this is actually the 2nd generation of the Citrix Thin Client. Citrix called this Citrix Ready Workspace Hub. The 1st generation was based on the Raspberry Pi 3 platform. And as you know, Raspberry Pi 3 only comes with a single HDMI output. And there were use cases out there that require a dual display. So to bridge the gap, we came out with a display adapter. Inside the display adapter is actually a Pi 0 board you connect to the USB port of the Raspberry Pi 3 to provide the extension. That architecture is really intended for the Pi 3 platform to bridge the gap to get to the dual display. So with the Pi 4 platform, it provides the dual display. I don't believe current Citrix architecture allowed the extension from 2 to 3 screen based on the Pi 0. So I think for the focus for the IGEL NComputing joint solution, it should be a native dual display. For more than 2 display, I think that is something maybe addressed in the future Pi. We don't know. We're working with them to help them with the future, the architecture definition. But for now, I think the dual display should be the primary target market.
Yeah, we should also not forget, and that's what frankly, thin clients and especially the IGEL technology is all about, right? You can mix and match, right? So if you have 80% or 90% of your clients out there that need 1 or 2 monitors, right? And then you have a few, and I'm sure it's not a whole lot, that have 3, 4, 5 monitors. Well, there are other clients with the IGEL operating system that can support that quite nicely. Yeah. So we don't think we can be the solution for everything out there, right? But we do believe we can be the solution for many, many of the installations. Yeah.
That's a very good answer. We have a complete product line, and difference between a Pi and a UD2 is there's a bunch, but you can go up that line and find out the sweet spot for you. So Sebastian, next question is yours.
Sure. One question I asked myself too, so the question is coming from the community, but in that case, what happens if the device goes broken? SD card as an example. Can we reflash the device with OSC like we are doing it on our own hardware, speaking from an IGEL perspective, or some foreign hardware by installing the ISO file again?
The micro SD card is fully concealed. We designed that so it doesn't allow the user to tamper. However, the user can, break the warranty seal and open the card and try to flash the micro SD card. We recommend in that case the customer to work with NComputing. So we do the software support. I'm sorry, the hardware support, and just contact us and we can provide the necessary instruction.
Okay, that's great. Perfect.
Perfect. We've had a lot of questions from our testers about that warranty seal, I must confess. So they all want to know if you can send them a stack of those stickers. So,
oh, yeah, sure.
So actually, in NComputing, we work with our partners. So we understand, in some rare occasions, if something breaks for whatever reason, they purchase the hardware from NComputing partners. So we have those capability to help our partners. In turn, the partner can address the field support request.
You got it. It's just something we were all teasing each other. You have a bunch of techies, and the first thing I'm going to do is open up the box and see what's inside, right?
Yeah.
So here's a question. Maybe this one's for you, Jeff. Are there any real world, you showed the video, or we tried to show the video, but do you have any numbers? Do you have any real world performance, or not real world because it's not out yet, right? But from your testing, performance results, offloading Teams, Skype, Jabber, Zoom, etc. What kind of data can you give us from the testing you've done?
Wow, good question. And don't have any hard and fast data. We've done some ad hoc evaluations of local processor and using GPUs, but mostly it's the bandwidth consumption, when you're offloading is dramatically different. All the pinning that people experience with unified communications in a remote environment go away. WebRTC has become the de facto standard for virtually all communications, it seems, these days. So everybody, whether it's Teams, or it's Microsoft, it's Zoom, it's GoToMeeting, Cisco, everybody's leveraging WebRTC. Not everybody has figured out how to redirect that, obviously, outside of the Citrix session. Citrix has taken WebRTC and then built that into the Citrix Workspace app for x86 today. So there's no, like for Skype for Business, you need RTME. It's an add-on module. But for Teams, it's part of the Workspace app. So there's no, as a lot of people here on this call know, there's nothing special that you need to do. It's just built in. We're looking forward to that support being in the Workspace app for ARM. WebRTC is supported there, so they just need to complete that. But what it ends up being is, you know, you're going to take a big load off of the processor and the host. Okay, and that's where most of where you're going to drop the load. It's not so much on the device locally, but you're not going to use the Workspace app. You just use the WebRTC functions of a browser locally. So, so no real deep studies, no numbers that we could give somebody today. Be an interesting thing to work on, because I think people would be quite interested in it.
Yeah, if I may just add a few more comments. We have been working with Citrix over the last 2 years on this Workspace Hub platform. I think there are two things. One is the optimization. In this case, the Teams optimization needs to be done by Citrix as part of their Workspace app. So if you're looking for Teams optimization, please talk to Citrix, provide feedback. We need Teams optimization on this, the IGEL NComputing device. Second thing is one of the reasons we love Raspberry Pi platform is its amazing graphic decoding capabilities. It has a lot of potentials. In one of the IGEL demo video, it showed, H.264 hardware encoding leveraging the hardware acceleration on the Pi 4. I have also seen Citrix demo. They use CAD/CAM Maya type of application that render 60 frames per second on the thin client, while the local CPU on the Pi is less than like 30-40%. It looks amazing. So I think there's a lot of capability underneath based on what the Pi can provide. Now it's about enabling those, and also in this case, Teams optimization. We really need everyone's help to provide this feedback to Citrix. If they support that in the Workspace app, we hope soon, then we can certainly enable this on the Pi device and bring that to everyone.
Staying on that Citrix topic, let me just jump in, as that question is coming also quite often. Is Citrix Workspace Hub implemented by start of the product in plan, or what are your thoughts regarding that topic?
Workspace Hub functionality. Well, I think we did mention it briefly, but anyway, to repeat it, and someone from IGEL, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that in the current beta, it's not quite there yet, or at least not fully functional. In the GA in February for Disrupt, it will be there. That's what I know. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. That is what we're working to. There's always an area of uncertainty in engineering, but we have the code in-house. We're working on it. Frank is our engineering manager, and he is desperately pushing to get the Workspace Hub working. Only time will tell, but that's the plan at the moment.
Well, I perhaps I should say one word about Workspace Hub functionality. I mean, this is something which Citrix is pushing for the last 2 years now, something along those lines. I think there's a second generation already out now, that which is what IGEL is.
That's exactly it. We're working on the new release, which is the second generation version.
That is the point, right? The old one might have been possible, but the new one obviously is a little bit different again, so it takes a moment.
And so some people may not be familiar with Workspace Hub. So Workspace Hub is what Citrix differentiate in terms of the vision to set it apart to be more than just an endpoint. Workspace Hub, essentially, there are two unique features. One is based on the session roaming, so you can roam your Citrix session from the mobile app to Workspace Hub on this, in this case, the IGEL NComputing device. The other one is casting, so kind of like AirPlay from your mobile device you can cast your display, in this case, the Citrix session, to a much larger, like TV in the conference room. There are some really interesting use cases, and we really look forward to working closely with IGEL to make this happen. So imagine, for example, the session roaming. There are actually two ways you can do the session roaming. One is based on a QR code. In this case, this IGEL NComputing device will have a QR code. Essentially, it has the IP address, and from the existing Citrix mobile workspace app from Android, iPhone, you can scan the QR code and you will seamlessly do the session transfer in the session roaming. The other part, which is very futuristic, is based on what we call the proximity authentication. So within your Citrix mobile app, it's on your smartphone, and your smartphone has Bluetooth. The Workspace Hub, our joint device, also has a Bluetooth. So based on the Bluetooth beacon detection, it can sense, hey, I have a Workspace app on my mobile phone, and I enable this proximity authentication, and I sense there's a Workspace Hub there. So based on the presence and based on the distance, which you can configure, it will automatically log in to the session. And when you leave the room, it will detect the beacon is no longer there for communication. It will log out. So imagine, if a doctor walk into the patient office and automatically log into his or her own session while talking to the patients, or if you have an office, you walk in, automatically everything is on. Once you leave, everything is log off. So I think there's a lot of innovative use cases. And then the third element to the Workspace Hub, there's actually a IoT feature, which is not being talked about, but the capability is there. So within the Workspace Hub, there's the concept of triggers. Triggers is, in this case, talk to Azure IoT. So once you log into the Citrix session, it can send trigger to Azure IoT. And Azure IoT essentially enable you to do all kinds of workflow automation, turning on the lights. You can interact with software program, like, if you walk into the conference room and you do the session roaming, it will trigger your voice over IP phone to automatically log into your scheduled meeting or even recording. You can mark the conference room as taken. I have seen some demo use cases. So there's a lot of interesting aspects with the Workspace Hub feature. But anyway, I think those are the future use cases we can enable once we have the Workspace Hub implemented.
You got it. You got it. That's really neat stuff. And we did a meetup in November with Chris Fleck from Citrix, and he's sort of the brainchild behind this whole idea of Workspace Hub and in casting. And he talked about some of that stuff, although we couldn't talk about a lot because we weren't allowed to talk about what we were doing around 5. But really neat possibilities, only going to get better and better. So the next question we have here is, this is a good one. So this is V1. This is our first version. It's not even out yet until the 25th of February. But, how does the IGEL OS RPI4 differ from the x86 in the sense of management? Is it that, do we still configure, Siegfried, you being part of product management, maybe you can take this one. Is it the same user experience or the admin experience? Are there features that aren't there or things that you do differently? And then what is differently, is that on the roadmap? And maybe you can share some of that with us too.
Yeah, sure. So in base, it's still IGEL. So you will have the base experience with them. You have the base look and feel, I would say, about that. But for sure, it's not our x86 build, right? So do not compare the feature set of the ARM device with the x86 device feature set. But you will have the same possibilities you have the possibility to manage it via our lovely UMS and so, right? And you will have the setup within the IGEL. You have the possibility to use profiles to configure the NComputing device and so on. So you don't have to learn from the ground, I would say. If you are still into IGEL, you will be pretty comfortable with the ARM device.
I would say, for users, I mean, they look identical. The options are all in the same place. It's the same setup utility, if you will, that people run on the device. It's the same profiles in UMS. It's just a question of what's available. And so, for example, there's no clients for VMware. There's no clients for WVD. There's no clients for Firefox. There's no Firefox in here because we haven't implemented that. Probably won't. I don't know. But point is, there's no learning curve. But I guess the learning curve is what options are not there because they're not available on ARM yet. Otherwise, it's the same.
Yeah, totally. Also the licensing system, right? You can still use your already existing Workspace Edition license if you bought some, and use them for the ARM devices with NComputing. So also you don't have to change anything or migrate anything or something like that. You can still use your Workspace Edition license. And you have also the EMP license. So I think one question was why I have to use both. You don't have to use both. You can use Workspace Edition. And if you need the ICG feature or any other features from the EMP product, then you need the EMP product.
Perfect. You grabbed the question I wanted to take. So perfect. Thank you very much, Siegfried. Let me take an ID which is coming from German interest. Build a chassis with USB-C dock and RX 420 built in. If a user brings a laptop, iPad, Android and connects to USB-C, then the use case for the user is that he can switch between the device. So he can come with his own private device, like an iPad, like a PC, or just use the RX 420, so the RPI4, inside of the docking station. So no need to bring your own device anymore. If you want, you can, but it's not mandatory anymore. Are there any plans to follow that kind of ideas? I mean, creating a kind of, let's call it an IGEL or IGEL NComputing based docking station?
That's actually an interesting question, and it's not the first time I hear that. What should work, and again, we need to double check that on the IGEL software. Once Workspace Hub functionality is working. Say you bring a laptop, yeah, and you have a RX 420 sitting there with a monitor, keyboard, mouse, usual setup, right? Now you have two possibilities. Obviously, you can run your session on the RX 420 if it's fully Citrix, right? But it might be that on your laptop you have some other things as well, not just running the Citrix session, but also some local stuff. And you like to just use the keyboard, the mouse, and the big screen. So essentially as a docking station, right? The casting feature of Workspace Hub essentially allows that, even wireless. You don't even need a USB-C connection. Because when you have, at least for a laptop, when you have a laptop, you can reroute mouse and keyboard through the part essentially to the keyboard and mouse which you have separately. So we haven't tried that on the IGEL software, but once the Workspace Hub functionality is there, this could be a pretty nice value proposition for people. I agree.
Yeah, we have so the Workspace Hub functionality is supported on Android, iOS, Windows, and Mac. So on the Windows laptop, you can also use the similar casting feature to basically dock your PC laptop to Workspace Hub device, and that Workspace Hub device connect to your computer monitor. So that is possible, and this is something that we should test before we GA.
Thank you. Interesting plans. Happy to hear that.
That's pretty cool. It's great that you've heard it already too. A lot of our customers create custom partitions, and they do some neat stuff with the IGEL device themselves to maybe run a client locally, or we have customers that push down their POS system to the devices, and we could see something like that being very valuable within the Pi. Does this device support custom partitions?
Who's that sent to? Me? I would say absolutely. Absolutely. I've already done a couple. So there are some other solutions out there, and I've built a couple of custom partitions just to test, and it works just as you would expect.
Perfect. Are there any limitations? Does RAM play into it? This is something we got a lot from the testers. Hey, it only has 2 gigs of RAM. If we're running a bunch of custom partitions, do we run out of RAM? Could that be an issue?
If you have a bunch of custom, yeah, certainly if you have a lot of custom partitions and you keep loading those applications, you're going to start using more and more RAM. It'd take a while to fill up the 2 gig because, again, you're not doing a lot of processing locally. But if you load up, if you launch, a bunch of Chromium tabs and you've got a Citrix session running and you add a couple of other functions, whether it's maybe one day VMware, one day No Machine, the No Machine works well. All those are going to take up memory, and all of them have workspace, and so you could push it out there. The question becomes, if you do, what do you do about it, I suppose? Because somebody did ask the question, is it possible that there would be a 4 gig module or version?
I mean, again, if we see this to be becoming an issue eventually, I guess we need to talk, Richard, right?
Yes. Yeah. So when we first came out with this Raspberry Pi 4 solution, we have the choice between 1 gig, 2 gig, and 4 gig. So we actually work with Citrix developers. Our question to them was, between the different system RAM configuration, is there any noticeable performance for the Citrix virtualization? So between 1 to 2, absolutely. Between 2 to 4, nothing at all. And also Chromium browser is something that I think it's being used pretty widely. So between Chromium browser, Citrix session, that's how we come out with the 2 gig configuration. But as the use cases expanded over time, definitely we will enable more hardware configurations.
That's, I guess, the approach that IGEL is keeping since a few years. We are not only seeing the usage of our products in a purely VDI solution-based field, even if it's still our main focus, but we also have the ability to use some local stuff, local implementations, local drivers, and so on. I guess that's where the question is coming from. Okay, great. I will take over the next question then. More kind of support question. If I would be a customer, where would I put the first ticket if I have an issue with the NComputing hardware or software? Because I'm not even sure where the issue is coming from. So where is my first point of contact in case of support?
Well, go ahead. Yeah, I think if if the device is black screen, right, or something doesn't work, you believe it's hardware, contact NComputing. I think we have website. I don't know if we've shown that in the presentation. NComputing support, we can help out. But if it is something related to the software functionality configuration, IGEL should be the first point of contact.
Right. I think it's typically pretty obvious what it is. I mean, hardware, you see if hardware breaks, right? I mean, as Richard said, black screen or something along those lines, or no network connection anymore or something. Yeah, then it's most likely hardware. Otherwise, it's most likely software without pushing everything to IGEL right now.
Yes. And every single
our support teams are in communication. So we are not. It doesn't really matter, I suppose, is the answer to that question. We will help you figure out, is this a hardware problem or is this a software problem? The point is that IGEL's supporting the software, NComputing supporting the hardware, and we'll figure it out for you. Will we have an instant answer? No, because we need to understand and characterize what the problem is. Yeah. But we'll work with you, and we're all together in this team here. And this is another reason why NComputing is the important partner. You call us up with a Raspberry Pi problem, and we're going to go, no, we don't support that. Go and reload it, or go and buy an NComputing device. What's the matter with you? Which bit of Raspberry Pi 4 that is not supported by IGEL didn't you understand?
Yeah.
And I just want to add one more point. So for DIY market, people buy from the retail. A lot of times, sometimes they may have faulty the Pi board. Some hardware doesn't work. So we procure, our logistic team procure a large volume from Pi Foundation through the distributor directly. We test every single device. We test all the ports to provide another level of quality control. So sometimes we found some faulty boards from the Pi Foundation. We reject those boards. And every unit that we manufacture on top of the IGEL, we fully test every single device before we ship out. So there's definitely much higher quality control going out. In addition, we have the support team from both NComputing and IGEL to make sure the user gets a really good experience.
Yep, we've worked really closely with NComputing to build a test suite that we run through for every device in the factory in Korea to make sure that the IGEL OS is installed correctly, so that you get a quality product at the end of the when it ships to you. Hopefully, it's inevitable there'll be some dead on arrival, but it should be a very, very small number. And that's enterprise quality is what we're trying to deliver here, not just something that might work.
That sounds like a great plan.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one thing about IGEL too, right? We deliver great product. We're not just delivering, crap in a box. So let's talk a bit about licensing, right? This is an interesting one. So one, when you buy the product, does it come with a license? Two, can you move a Pi license to an IGEL OS a 64-bit device? Can you move a 64-bit device back? Three, what does it cost? If we have cost on this yet? And then whatever other number, I think 4 or 5, where do you get it? Things of that nature. Can you give us the licensing 101, Simon?
Sure. And Siegfried or Ute, feel free to jump in if I miss anything. So one, it's exactly the same license. We made a conscious decision that there is one IGEL OS Workspace Edition license. There is one Enterprise Management Pack subscription license. Basically, you can transfer that license seamlessly between an x86 device and a Raspberry Pi, an NComputing device. We don't care. The license, the IGEL license portal, the ILP, is fully set up to handle any type of device. So you pull down the license, you run it on that machine, and then when you finish that machine or that machine dies or you want to throw that away and move it back, you can move it seamlessly between different devices. That we have that same pool of licenses capability. Two, the product ships with a demo license. So you turn it on and you get a limited functionality license without ever having to tell anybody that you're using the technology. We strongly urge people to immediately register the device so that you get the full functionality and the MMCP in particular for graphics capabilities. Most people, it's not a secret, but we have to pay a license fee to the MMCP organization for every time we ship an IGEL OS license. Consequently, we're happy to pay that for you to have an evaluation license. We can't afford for you to do it for just a demo license. So we need to know who you are so that we can tell. And that's why we use that tracking mechanism of the registration so that we are bona fide paying the right fees to the MMCP. And there's another couple of other organizations we pay a license fee to. But fundamentally, it's exactly the same. The UMS registers it, recognizes this device and sets the policy for that machine and will make that run as it needs to run. Siegfried, Ute, have I missed anything?
No, you're fully right. So as I said, it's the same like with the x86 device. So we have the starter license, the 30-day license, which Simon said, just to support you with the rollout, right? If you have no license, you cannot do anything. So this is why we bring up the starter license and also to the ARM device. And as he said, if you need more time and you need the MMCP for evaluation or things like that, then you're doing this process. But all in the base, it's like the x86 device in this cases.
Hopefully that answers. Doug, was there more to your question?
No, I think you got it. You got it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's really the same experience that you have with any other device. It's just a different look of a piece of hardware, right? It's a different piece of hardware. It's the same experience. Would that be a fair statement, Simon?
Absolutely. Spot on.
Perfect.
I think there are a couple other questions, like where can you buy the device, how much it costs.
Oh, yeah, yeah, thank you. How much does it cost? Yeah.
So
where can you buy it?
You can buy this RX 420 IGEL device from NComputing online store for early evaluation. It's www.ncomputing.com/gethub. So I think maybe, Doug, we can provide them with information. We have a special coupon code that provide, I think, a significant discount for beta. We can also provide a coupon code to the audience here. When we GA, the device can be available in all the channels. In the US, our primary distributor is Ingram Micro. We also have a couple of resellers. We're also open to accepting new partners. In EMEA, Yorken has many channels already that can make the parts available. From the cost perspective, we work with partners. We only sell through channels, so we have channel pricing, and they need to have their own margin. But I believe from the end user standpoint, which we don't provide any kind of MSRP, is really up to them to decide. I think it's anywhere between 170 to 180, 190, depends on the region, and also the value add that they provide. So the MSRP is open. We do have channel margin, and we provide that to the partners. Compared to a traditional x86 thin client, it is a fraction of the cost. Not only from I think functionality standpoint, I think there will be a minimum gap based on the further optimization, but also from the form factor and also the low cost, the low power saving features. So I think that's that.
Yep, and our pricing is everything you've ever had before for Workspace Edition and for Enterprise Management Pack, and the annual support and Priority Plus support, all the standard array of functionality and features and options available to you for an enterprise piece of software. That's what we're aiming after, the enterprise market, to enable you to be effective with this tool. Back to you, Doug.
Got it. Got it. Sebastian, it's your turn.
Yeah, sure. Question: can you convert a standard RX 420 into an IGEL OS device by using the firmware upgrade option?
The answer is probably not. So we do have other RX 420 platform solutions out there based on the different firmware. Firmware update is only applicable if you have the full image of a particular vendor, in this case our partner IGEL. So for other the hardware platform based on the different full image, it is not possible. But I think however, we're open to opportunities where a customer with existing RX 420 deployment depends on the volume. I think our logistic team can work with our sales team to convert if it is proven to be a large opportunity. But for individual opportunity, I think logistically it's quite burdensome. But we're open to opportunities, and please work with your NComputing staff, and we can escalate internally and discuss.
We will, I promise.
Perfect. And this almost dovetails out of that question. So, okay, so we bought it, let's fast forward a month or 2 months, and now we're going to have some updates for this thing. How will they be, how do they do updates? Siegfried, this might be a question for you. And with x86, you download it, you can either do it through UMS, or you can go to igel.com and download the update there. Will it be the same for the RPI4? You were right, that is difficult to say.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if someone already tried it here, like Jeff or something like that. But our goal is to have the same experience. I think I'm trying to get you in a loop and loop again, but this is something we try to achieve in the end. Like we have in the UMS, you can push it, okay, is there a new update or something like that, and download it with, for sure, with a special file name in the end, which download it for sure. But we're trying to get the same experience to the administrators and for the end users. It doesn't matter if it's an IGEL OS 11 x86 device or it's an IGEL OS RPI4 device.
Yeah, we hear the question from time to time within the IGEL community. You know, I can't download it from the UMS, or from the internet. My UMS is not connected to the internet, right? We need to be able to download it in a different way and then import it to the to the UMS in order to send it out to the RPI4. Just threw out a bunch of acronyms at you. Jeff, yep. I see you went on mute. Did you want to add anything there?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Simon knows why I'm good, and so does Siegfried.
We're working on it. We're working on it.
Apparently, the IGEL OS part of the questions are almost covered. I will come back to the hardware now. Are there any countries in which the device itself cannot be sold, like an example, China?
I believe we already sold through China. Our device is FCC CE certified in North America, Europe. We also have individual certification in Japan, India, certification in Philippines, Southeast Asia, and also I believe China too. We have already sold devices into those countries.
Yeah, I think the only ones would be some export restrictions like Iran. That might be a problem, right? I don't think we have even tried, but other than that, I don't see it. I mean, we sell into Russia and those countries as well, and we have the right certifications for that.
Perfect. Question answered. Thank you.
Perfect. Guys, we only have 5 minutes left. So my last question usually is, you know, future. I don't know how much we can talk about the future, but in fact, the pie's just brand new, right? But this is the future. But maybe Simon or Siegfried, or I think I saw Matthias Haas on the line too, can maybe say something, or you know, the folks from NComputing, you know, what's the future? What's maybe the future of the hardware, the software, this relationship, things of that nature? What are folks buying into?
All right, I'll go first. So my vision of the future is that this is a natural progression for IGEL. Our goal in life is to deliver an operating system and all the tools that work with that operating system to enable an edge operating system for cloud workspaces. We also have a vision in 5 years' time that we will be active in the IoT space. There's a lot of, you know, we talk with Gartner a lot about edge computing and smart computing taking place at the edge, feeding back a reduced set of information. ARM is clearly the architecture for that. This is our first step into this field, and this is, you know, we chose a good enterprise partner, and we want to make sure this works right. Quality before quantity, quality above everything else. Let's make sure we do things right. So, you know, this is baby steps for the minute. I don't want to be making commitments about all the things we're doing. People are asking about VMware support, WVD support, and all these things. We will get there, but we don't have a schedule for those things at the moment. What we want to do is make sure that Citrix and the Chromium browser is working right, and we have a high quality solution for them soon. And, you know, we build the best product we possibly can to give you extraordinarily good value for money. From a futures perspective, this is, you know, you've witnessed Apple announcing that they're going to have an ARM device. Well, you know, we already run on the Mac OS. We can already displace the Mac OS on a lot of those Mac devices. I personally run with the UD Pocket. I put it inside my Mac and convert that on a semi-regular basis. To use it in an IGEL as an IGEL device. The sky is the limit for us. We are not limited to any particular device. We want to be available across any device, and that is our mantra. That's what we're aiming to do, and you'll see us continue to do that. stay tuned. It's going to be an interesting and wild ride, but IGEL software company, passionate about cloud workspaces, IoT, and the edge. Sorry, I've got to stop pumping my fist. I look like somebody who just left the United States yesterday.
And from an NComputing standpoint, I think our focus is to deliver this high quality product, initially target for the Citrix customer. This is more than just an endpoint. Besides, it has a great workspace app capability, but the workspace hub functionality does offer innovative future use cases. We want to work closely with IGEL and Citrix to enable that to the fullest extent possible. Also, as a hardware enabling in a party here in the partnership, we're working closely with Pi Foundation. Based on the Pi4, I think they took a lot of our input to make it the dual display and the 5 gig support. We have very good working relationship with them to define the architecture. And I think based on the feedback here and in the future, we hope we can also influence the Pi Foundation. We want to make sure it is becoming a very viable leading edge endpoint computing device, whether it's for the workload or edge computing. So we're in the forefront, and we hope we can continue to innovate through hardware differentiation as a platform enabler.
Perfect. Apparently Doug had to drop, or apparently his connection dropped, so I will take over. I would say we are almost done now, so we will keep the recording and send everything out after the session. So I would just want to say thank you to everyone who joined, from the attendees, but also from the panelists itself. So thank you for Jochen, Simon, Jeff, Ute, Mirko, Matthias Haas, Richard, Jaroslav, for joining today and helping us to answering all the questions. It was a lot, and we didn't cover everything, so we will have maybe a short follow-up questions list that we'll send over. But thank you very much for attending. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for having us. And
Thank you,
reach
everybody.
out to us if you have questions.
We will.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks very much. Thank you for attending. Bye.